Hey everyone, this is George Soto with Soto Ventures, live from San Francisco. I'm excited to be back with Mr. Richard Harris of the Harris Consulting Group. Richard, how's it going?
Awesome, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Can't really complain. Last time we spoke, we talked a lot about kind of what the future of B2B sales is as it relates to technology and particular roles and processes and these sorts of things. What, again, would you say, based on everything that you've seen here recently, is really the main thing that's kind of changed or how the space has evolved over the past decade?
Yeah, I think that the things that we're seeing very specifically in the last 10 years are people are getting wiser about going faster, being better, and being cheaper. So they're putting a little bit more thought into those three main pillars. And you can dive into those for a long time, but there were the things that I've seen in the last 10 years that have really reshaped places are one is around the SDR role or the sales development role, where what used to be called the appointment setter, back in the day, has evolved into a more early stage sales role. And it's great for people who are wanting to see if they want to be in sales or they know they want to be in sales. And it's a great way for them to test the waters and learn some things before they're just sort of thrown to the wolves, so to speak. I also think it makes it easier and faster and less expensive for organizations, whether you're a startup or, a Fortune 500, to manage costs around that. And again, work towards better while also being cheaper, which is a smart thing. So that's one thing, is the SDR role. Obviously, the other thing is, and we hear this all the time, is that you have smarter buyers and sellers. We hear a lot about, the buyer has been down the path 60% of the way before they reach out to a salesperson. I personally do not think that that's true. I think 60% is a little far to be going. But I think people like to do that, and then they like to put fear into their sales reps to make them think that they've already made that much of a decision. But trust me, nobody's making a $50,000 or $100,000 decision 60% of the way without talking to somebody. Just doesn't happen. That's just not realistic, in my opinion, unless it's a true commodity. Maybe if you're buying a car, that might be the one place where it's a commodity purchase. But what that also means to those, that your sellers are smarter. So they're getting better at trying to actually help people. Some customers think that's a little bit annoying because they don't want to sit here and be peppered by questions. But a very good salesperson will tell you within the first 5 minutes that if they can't help you, that they don't want to waste their time or yours. So they won't spend time, asking you a bunch of questions unless they've sort of set up a way for everybody to walk away politely within the first 5 minutes of the very first phone call. It's something I actually teach. So, and people are always relieved when they hear that. And I think that's that's something that we're not seeing as much of, but we will start seeing even more in the future. Then the last thing that's also changed too is that, there used to be sort of this X factor with sales. Like, do they have the it factor? Are they a closer? And we didn't know how or why these men and women were so good at closing. And we called it an art form. There's absolutely some level to an art of being in sales, whether you want to call it the gift for gab, having a tremendous level of patience, creating the right amount of empathy. Some of those things, some people are not naturally empathetic. They actually have to learn that skill. But what you're starting to see is what was an art form is now becoming a managed art form. And it's moving more towards a science where there are things to measure. And I don't mean, just measuring things like talk time and dials. I'm talking about conversations. What are the milestones that need to occur in a sales conversation? And then even, again, back to that smarter salesperson, being able to share with the prospect, hey, if you're really evaluating us, you're going to need to go through these 10 milestones and we should talk about them. And I'll talk about them whenever you want. So I think those are the things that I'm really seeing starting to evolve. I'm seeing it more from the stuff that I'm teaching when my clients ask me, they're like, yes, that's exactly what we need. But then when I talk to other people in the field who do what I do, or other organizations who figured this piece out without me, which is great, that's what's happening, is that people are just getting smarter and wiser about things.
Awesome. That's wow. You sent chills through my veins here. You know, I love this stuff. So when you talk about kind of like having conversations and that, you know, data is really important and tracking is really important, but you got to have those human conversations.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. As you know, I started off my career as a door-to-door salesperson in college. So there,
Right.
the biggest or most tracking rather that I ever did was writing it on a notebook, that I was going to visit a house. So great. Well, Richard,
they didn't care how many doors you knocked on. They wanted to know how many people answered the door and had a conversation with. So it's the same
absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much again for joining us today. Just as a reminder, what would be the best way for folks to get in contact with you if they wanted to, seek your consulting services or maybe just ask you a couple of questions and get some advice?
Sure. And please, anybody, I will answer any question. I don't charge by the minute. I don't charge by the question. Ask me anything. I'll be glad to be as helpful as I can. But the easiest way is my phone number, 415-596-9149, 415-596-9149. Or you can email me at richard@theharrisconsultinggroup.com, richard@theharrisconsultinggroup.com. And you can reach out to me on Twitter at rharris415.
Awesome. Great. Well, Richard, have a great day. Like always, enjoy the family. I know it's a weekend, so I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, man. It's good catching up with you, George. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Have a great one.
You too. Bye.